Let's now turn to two of the best newsmen in the business. From Sydney, 2GB broadcaster and Sky News host Chris Smith, and from the Gold Coast, Sky News Queensland editor Peter Gleeson. Gentlemen, welcome to you both to the show. Chris, a win for Albanese and the unions. The politics of the issue, of course, plays well, but in reality, is this a death knell for thousands of small businesses?
Well, of course it is, Rowan. You remember back into the election campaign, this was a thought bubble. He didn't come out to announce at a press conference that he supported a 5.1% pay increase for minimum wage earners. That was a question that was asked after he'd answered a dozen questions on other subjects, and it was just an Albo thought bubble that has materialised, which is a joke. And he kept running around saying, oh, come on, it can't be that bad. It's only $1 an hour. Well, it's not $1 an hour. To small business people, Rowan, it's $160 per month extra for every single employee. And the calls that I heard on Talkback Radio today were telling. Small business people saying, that's fine, but I've got two choices to make. I don't employ the same number of people in my business as I do now, or I just throw the towel in. I know the sky's not falling in, but what a stupid time to do something like this and throw another $9 billion into the economy in wage increases. I don't get it. I didn't get taught that in the economics class that I attended.
Well, I agree with you, Chris, and the one word that I would love to hear coming back again is the word Thatcherism, because seriously, we are now not only handing out more money to people, which comes from where? Oh, from us, the taxpayer. We've also got rising inflation, we've got rising interest rates, and we've got huge energy problems. Not a time, as Chris, you say, to be chucking the cash around. Gleeso, the new cabinet met for the first time in Gladstone, in rural Queensland today. They'd all be pleased with this announcement, pleased as punch, as if it was their money and not ours. But what does this mean for the new government as they continue on their kind of crazy left-wing spendathon?
Well, it means, Rowan, that the inflationary genie is well and truly out of the bottle. Get used to it, guys. We are headed for some very, very tough economic times. But of course, Treasurer Jim Chalmers, how many times has he said we've inherited a basket case in the last few weeks since he was sworn in? I think we should run a little sort of test on Sky over the next 12 months, and the amount of times that Jim Chalmers says inherited, we whack it up. And so that sounds like a good one for Paul Murray. But Chris Smith is right. Chris Smith is right. The problem is that small business, who also on July 1 will be subjected to extra superannuation costs for their employees, they now have this extra costs associated with the minimum wage. So, look, I think their political narrative will be, yes, aren't we good? They'll, get their biceps out and say we delivered on that promise, that thought bubble. But for Australia as a whole, Australia as a nation, I don't think it's very good news at all.
Got to agree with you there, Glee. So listen, energy, when it was announced earlier this year that the Eraring power station in the Hunter Valley was closing, Matt Keane announced his shock. Oh, this is dreadful, But a report today has shown that Origin Energy had plans to keep the power station running for longer, but they were ignored by the New South Wales government. Chris, our dear friend Matt Keane appears to be yet again, shall we say, being economical with the truth. What's the story here?
Yes, convenient with the truth, Matt Keane. And he was shocked on two fronts over the past 4 months, and they are interesting aspects of the way he deals with the public, because he was shocked about the fact that we've got a supply crisis. He said that on Radio National yesterday. Shocked that we've got a supply crisis? Did he just think that if you pray really hard and put in as many windmills and solar panels as you possibly can, we transition seamlessly and so soon that it doesn't really matter? We don't need to have a scientific due diligence done on that. And the other thing he was shocked about was Eraring. You're dead right, when at the same time Eraring was talking to him and the government about the New South Wales government taking 50% of it. He was in on all of that, and yet, shock horror, they've got to close a little earlier. Mate, convenient with the truth. Two words spring to mind: conniving and duplicitous.
Or maybe we're being unfair, Chris. Maybe he was too busy on his tweeting or texting Stella over at Channel 10 to get her to ask Scott Morrison inconvenient questions, Of
course.
Gleeso, Labor's Resources Minister, Madeleine King, I think she's quite impressive, but that'll be the kiss of death for her. That's it, her career's over now that I've said that. But anyway, she's warned today we should expect an even bigger power crisis into the future if we don't start investing in new gas projects. Gleeso, we've heard similar remarks from her over the past couple of weeks. Let's get more coal going. Let's all this. Why isn't the government following the advice of their own minister?
Because, Rowan, they are a hostage to the left. Let's not forget that if Bill Shorten was Prime Minister now, we wouldn't have the Adani coal mine in Queensland, which, of course, generates thousands and thousands of jobs. I cannot believe in 2022 we are having a discussion in this country about power shedding, about the fact that, don't put the kettle on tonight. Don't have a hot shower tonight because we've got this problem with our electricity supply. And I think it's an indictment on the way in which this country has shifted so far to the left and chasing these crazy renewable targets when other countries around the world, including China, including India, including France, are building coal-fired power stations. We're phasing them out. We are mugs. Simple as that.
We certainly are, mugs. I guess they have a good chuckle there in Beijing, in the great hall of the forbidden communist kingdom or whatever it is, laughing themselves silly as they watch what we get up to. Chris, I mentioned earlier the Facebook post this morning suggesting, well, basically that grannies freezing under the doona is a small price to pay for lowering emissions. Do you think these TEAL zealots actually enjoy inflicting this kind of suffering on those who don't see the light about climate?
Gee, they're masochists, aren't they? Masochists for the cause, they are. Virtue signalling right to the very end. As long as it hurts, it's good pain. Can you believe this stuff? And Kim, who you quoted on that Facebook page saying, well, we have no earthquakes. I thought, like you, when I first read it, I thought, hang on, this is a joke. She's having a joke at the TEALs. But no, absolutely believes that if we stop CO2 emissions in this country, we change the weather. Kim, and to all the thousands of Australians who are that stupid to think that, ask the former chief scientist. It doesn't work that way. We stop all CO2 emissions. We don't change the weather. Nothing happens except we get sick from the heat. We get ill from the cold, and the country ends up a third world nation. If that's what you want, keep at it.
You're right. I'd forgotten that great quote. How much will it change? Ian McDonald's great question. How much will it change the global temperatures? Virtually nothing. Great. Thanks, Chief Scientist. Gleeso, up your way. Brisbane ratepayers are set to be hit with one of the steepest rate hikes in over a decade. The Lord Mayor has insisted this is to help with housing affordability. But isn't this going to just kind of hurt the most vulnerable people amongst us?
Without question. And let's face it, we're just talking about inflationary pressures attached to that decision by the Fair Work Commission. I mean, this is another example. Everything's going up. Everything's going up when you think about it in this country. And I think this is a knee-jerk reaction from Adrian Schrinner, the Lord Mayor. I'm a big rap for Adrian Schrinner. I think he's a terrific Lord Mayor. But we've seen the emergence of the Greens in those inner city seats, Ryan, Griffith and Brisbane, and you've got an emergence there in those seats, and particularly some of those wards around Brisbane City where the Greens are making an impression. They are big on affordable social housing, and I think Schrinner's excuse that this is about affordable and social housing is to appease those sort of Greens voters. So probably an overstep. But again, just adds to that inflationary pressure that we're seeing around the country right now.
Gleeso, Chris, I want to get to you on Bluey in a second and the ABC, but quickly, Gleeso, the story you broke in the Courier Mail this afternoon about the trend of lenient sentencing in Queensland after the hit and run of a pregnant woman and her partner. Tell us, you interviewed the family today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, indeed. And Russell Field and Anne Field, they lost their son Matthew Field and, of course, his partner, Kate Ledbetter, and their 6-month unborn child, 3 months to go in the gestation period. Terrible accident in Alexandra Hills on Australia Day last year. They are pushing for a review and appeal into the sentence to the 17-year-old youth that was involved in that. He was high on drugs. He was drunk at the time, and he got 6 years jail. So there's an appeal that they are seeking. This is what Russell Field told me earlier today.
It was liked by many, loved by many, disliked by few, but will be missed by everyone. The overall sentence isn't enough for the crimes that he committed on that day, let alone all the other crimes and offences he had committed previously. Yeah. So for 6 years, for killing 3 people, we classify Miles as a person.
Yes.
Is totally just incomprehensible. To me, life isn't enough.
And soft sentencing is a big issue in Queensland, particularly among juvenile delinquents, and that particular case has been sent to the DPP by Attorney General Shannon Fentiman. Let's hope that sanity prevails.
Absolutely. Great, as was said, incomprehensible. Finally, quickly, Chris, apparently this is another slightly incomprehensible story. Bluey, the ABC's Bluey, the ABC have come out now and said that maybe there's too much larrikinism in the dog cart story. What's going on?
They're operating in the wrong country, aren't they, to have something that's too much of a larrikin? Like, seriously. I am the professor of Bluey because he is a hero in my household with my 2 6-year-olds. And I'm telling you right now, the way Bluey's father acts is exactly the way I act to my kids. We rumble, I cheat them, I tease them, they tease me. That's how families get on in Australia. It's larrikinism and it works both ways. I wish they'd find something better to do.
Well, all I can say, Chris, is I'm glad you got the larrikin spirit there in your household. So everybody watch Bluey and cheer on the larrikin spirit. That's what we want. Chris Smith, Peter Gleeson, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Credlin.